The Japanese are not known for single malt because they learned to make whiskey with blended. For them, the true art is in blending, not in single malt. But well, that's a story for another day. But how are you, dear friends of Talking About Whiskey, your favorite whiskey channel? My name is Eduardo, and here we are again in Madrid, the capital of what remains of the Kingdom of Spain. And well, here we are, again, right. And today we are with Today we have a Japanese one, my friend, a Japanese one from the house of Nikka, which is Nikka. Here I will show it. Nikka Single Malt. Yoichi, 45% volume, 70 centiliters. It's a whiskey, Masataka Taketsuru, who founded the distillery, which is the first distillery founded in Japan, the first Nikka distillery founded in Japan in 1934. And the founder chose Yoichi in Hokkaido because, well, it seems to have very good conditions for making whiskey. This is a whiskey distilled and matured in Hokkaido. This one, I'm not sure if it's the one with some smoke. I think it is, but I don't remember anymore. It's a whiskey with 45% volume from the Nikka distillery, right? Well, yes. Well, what can we say? I mean, one of the oldest distilleries. We are going to start serving a little more from all of Japan. As you can see, the Japanese use a plastic cap, authenticity. For what? Come on, let's go with the cork if it's not their main goal. And besides, they know that it preserves better. With the plastic cap, and I prefer it without a doubt, it is the best for preserving whiskey. It is a whiskey that is a single malt. You know that the Japanese, and before continuing in case there is any. The Japanese are not known for single malt because they learned to make whiskey with blended. So for them, the true art is in blending, not in single malt. But well, that's a story for another day. I think this is it. Indeed, a bit smoky. This is a whiskey that has a bit of peat. They have burned it with. It has a certain soft peat load there. I understand that it is from Japan. It is a single malt. It has to be made at the Yoichi distillery in Hokkaido. And it is from Nikka. We have Yoichi Miyagikyo, which is the non-smoky version of Yoichi. And then we have Pure Malt, which is the blend of Yoichi and Miyagikyo Nikka. It is a distillery that has countless expressions of all kinds. You have the famous single thunder barrel, that disgusting one that I can't stand. And then it has other expressions that have nothing to do with those whiskeys. That is to say, a very creative distillery. I truly love the bottle. It exudes Japanese style from every angle. A super simple, super minimalist bottle with a super functional cap. It has a certain color. It's a bit darkened. It's a somewhat greenish glass. It's a somewhat unusual color. So, well, let's see on the nose this Yoichi Nikka single malt whiskey. A Japanese whiskey with a bit of smoke, which is also something very exotic, and it's a single malt, which is also not very common in Japan. Let's see on the nose what this single malt Yoichi suggests to us. It's incredible how good this smells. Damn, I made you 45, right? 45% volume. 2001. You already know that the Japanese are not known for making particularly intense whiskeys in terms of ABV, alcohol by volume. But in this case, yes, they have chosen to make something intense. Look, I think it's all ex-bourbon if I'm not mistaken. Is there a very slight medicinal note accompanied by notes of a very soft sweetness like lychees? These fruits that are very soft, very smooth. Some persimmons, that type of sweetness, that type of fruit. The medicinal note is truly incredible because it has a lot of old bandage, a lot of pharmacy, a lot of hospital, but very well achieved, very smooth, very rich, You will never smell a whiskey from Ayla like this. Not even a Scottish whiskey with this subtlety. Truly, it is absolutely incredible. At times it is an Ardbeg, at times a Japanese whiskey, at times a Scotch whiskey. With sweet touches, super smooth wood notes, and banana. Incredible whiskey. Incredible whiskey. Are there some fruits? As I say, very soft, very light, like some little grapes. That kind of sweetness, right? Like a wine must, something, those delicate smells of a must, of a smooth wine. And at the same time, it is a very intense medicinal smell, but very smooth. It is very rare. It is very rare. It is an extremely strange whiskey. Perfect alcohol integration. There is no alcohol. It's practically a syrup, meaning you can smell it, you can put your nose in there, and there is no alcohol. Mushrooms, notes of wood, resins, and also a hint of cereal can be perceived. Incredible, truly an incredible smoky whiskey. It says soft pitted, but you can perfectly perceive the iodine. So it isn't. It's soft. It's not an Ardbeg, but it's not something they made up. I have to imagine it. No, not at all. Let's taste this Yoichi from Nikka. Cheers, Kampai. Wow, I think this is about 70. You go and buy it. Especially if you are smoke lovers, this whiskey will surprise you a lot. And if you are not smoke lovers too. 2001. The iodine load is very noticeable on the palate. It's a curious thing because it's not usual, at least for me, that whiskeys with a lot of iodine on the nose then have that reflection on the palate. This one does. Like all Japanese whiskey, it needs some time. We cannot expect to get the full set of notes from a Japanese whiskey as we do from a Scotch, and much less from a bourbon, that type of distilled spirits. Japanese whiskeys, I always use the same example. If we have a scale from 1 to 10, in terms of immediate expressiveness, so to speak. Well, without a doubt, and we have Scotch, bourbon, and Japanese to name the three most well-known, without a doubt the strongest one that will hit you hard will be the smoked whiskeys from Ireland or Scotch. But let's forget about the smoky ones for a bit. Let's think about more standard whiskey, which, well, before they were all smoky, but you understand that now peat is no longer used in the vast majority. The first one that will hit you hard is the bourbon. The bourbon is obvious. Those synthetic notes of sweetness, coconut, banana, super creamy, super strong. That would be a 10, right? Scotch already depends. It's not the same. A Highlands, which also even among Highlands depends on which Highlands, but it's not a Highlands. As a Speyside, as a LOL, etc. So let's say it has an expressiveness of a 7, so to speak. And in Japanese at first, I mean when you serve it, when you smell it, when you taste it, and in Japanese at first it might be at a 3 or a 4, but it's very deceptive. 2001 is very deceptive because these whiskeys evolve a lot in the glass. Don't ask me how they do it, how they achieve it. I suppose it's through trial and error, testing, mixing, I don't know. I have no fucking idea. But these are whiskeys that at first, which is not the case because it is already quite expressive from the start, but you have to wait a bit because it is very likely that this whiskey will continue to surprise us as we take more sips. But I tell you, it's one of the best whiskeys I've ever had in my life, right? Clearly aged. Therefore, this is a very young whiskey. 3 years and a bit. I'm telling you, 3, 4, 5, no more. It becomes more oxygenated. There are some notes a bit more, let's say a bit. The iodine continues, but some notes appear like wood, a little more marked, like varnishes, like a slightly synthetic note, and the burnt note appears. The note we didn't have before. The barbecue note, the burnt wood note, charcoal. It appears with more intensity. Let's see in the mouth. Wow, it truly is a masterpiece of whiskey. I mean, I can't define it any other way. It is one of the best whiskeys I have ever had in my life. Obviously, I had already tried it because, as you can see, the bottle is quite used. But without a doubt, I can only recommend this whiskey to you now. I mean, it's not that I'm going to praise it more. It's just that it is incredibly good. At the same time, it has a subtlety that you won't find in a Scotch. And it's a super dangerous whiskey. Super dangerous meaning this, I mean, be very careful, very careful. A Gillette, as my friend Xavier Monclos used to say, one of the people I know who knows the most about whiskey and wines in the world, especially champagne. And whiskey, not to mention brandies, and cognacs, who is an ambassador for Louis Vuitton, Moet Genesis, Arbe. Besides, this is like a Gillette because it cuts you, you don't even notice, you're bleeding out in 5 minutes, you're dripping. Well, it's a Gillette, this cuts and you don't even notice. Be very careful with this whiskey, but it's an extraordinary whiskey, I'm telling you. It costs around $70 really, it's worth it. At this price to find Japanese whiskey, these tastings, and with this combination of exoticism and smoke, you have to congratulate them because they have made an amazing whiskey. Well folks, that's it for today's tasting. I hope you had fun, as I always say, that you learned something, that you had a good time, and we'll see each other in the next video talking about whiskey, if you want, of course. And take care, see you soon, bye, a hug, and drink in moderation, a hug.